All right, we're recording. It's your baby today. I'm going to let you run with it. Intro. Welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I'm your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah, aka if Alf and Antonio Banderas had a love child. That's what he looks like.
Alf, the guy
Yeah,
from the 1980s.
yeah, Alf and Antonio Banderas. You're like
I
a
don't,
perfect mix.
I don't know if I should be offended by that. The Antonio Banderas part, I guess I could be happy about, but the Alf, I'm like, dude's kind of a weird looking creature.
It's like a compliment sandwich. That's what my wife does. She'll like say something nice, and then she tells me what she wants me to do, and then once I do it, then she'll tell me something nice again. It's just a tactic. So, whatever. Do what I say. Same kind of thing. I'm telling you that you're ugly, but you're kind of like Antonio Banderas. But anyways, all
All
right.
right.
This is your baby
Ouch.
today. You run with this. I didn't get involved in any of this, so I don't really know any of the backstory. So this is you just reporting it to me. But I mean, from what I heard, basically you got your ass handed to you by somebody in the comment section. Is that fair?
No, not at all. Here's what, and this isn't meant to be like a gotcha episode either. I think it's actually a really good topic that needs to be addressed and discussed. And we've never really talked about it. It's kind of a very in the weeds type topic. But basically, high level, I'll give you a background and then we'll get into the topic. I put a post out, a meme. I was playing golf literally on the golf course on like the 10th hole. And I was like, I got to put something up today. So I just had an old meme that I created. And it was meant to be funny. It's about some knight sitting there and all he has is a little slit, open over his eyes. And I just put, agent in the top of the meme. It was the knight sitting there. And I put agents blocking the market. The bottom of the meme had an arrow hitting the guy through the one little slit. And I said, that one market that agent doesn't have. Right. And it it was fairly, performed fairly well. But I put in the context of it like, hey, as a buyer of insurance, some I'm a huge believer in using one market or one agent to go to the market. I always have been. But there's always one exception to the rule. Uh, and that exception is if there's another agent that has a market or a carrier that your current agent doesn't have, then that there's no downside to talking with another agent in that situation. So maybe for you, the incumbent agent, that's a negative, but for the buyer, there's no downside to talking with a market that you don't have access to, right, through another agent. Now I know it's not like uh, something you want to tell your client necessarily, and I'm not saying as a practice you should encourage a buyer of insurance to go out there every year or scour the market for that one-off market that maybe you don't have. But if you've been in this industry for a while, you know that certain industries, there's specific markets that are just super aggressive or super competitive, and it's very tough to compete with, right? And they don't have a lot of contracts out there. And so, like for one, if you're in trucking, what is it, Great West? I got a buddy who has that. Like literally, they're almost half price a lot of other uh, carriers. And so there's other, you're in towing, and there's a ton there. So in those situations, or I worked at Federated, right? There's no downside as a buyer of insurance to talking with Federated. And so my whole point of the message was that like in those situations, you know, it's not negative for the client to talk with those carriers, but the bigger picture, the reason there was a comment made like by someone, hey, this goes against everything you said. And then he went off and on a tirade about, like this is spewing from the 90s about spray and pray and blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what he else said. I'm not going to read it. And that's cool. I'm actually glad that he spoke up because I think a lot of times on social media, people just like agree or whatever. No one ever offers a counter perspective on things. So, hey, kudos to the guy for speaking up. But I 100% disagree with his first premise which was like, hey, this goes against everything you've been saying. That's not the case. I said, hey, refer to the book. Every time, and I wrote this in my book, I put all my posts on it. I say, rule number one, hire one agent. That is what I see the most successful businesses do is they hire one agent and have a long-term relationship. However, there's an exception to the rule. The exception is if there's another market that's really hot or a direct writer and another agent represents them and your current agent doesn't, it's not negative to talk to them, right? It doesn't hurt you to quote with them. Now, the reason you want to share this with your clients is because it builds trust. If you only share information that is self-serving to you, essentially you just kind of sound like someone drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And I think here's the deal on the AOR situation. I'm a huge believer in AOR. I built my whole first $1 million book of business on AORs only. And since moving from my last agency, 80% of my business is still AOR, but I do quote in select situations. But I think sometimes we can get so like AOR authoritarian, almost like it goes from one extreme to the other, where you got these quote people, and then all of a sudden quoting's terrible, and you go all the way to like AOR is the only way to do it. And it's like, dude, who cares, right? At the end of the day, I do think the best way to do it is AOR, but there is exceptions and there is nuance and there's gray areas. And I think by you, the reason this is relevant to you guys listening is because your buyers need to see that you're just keeping it real with them, right? Like this is just what it is. I'm not trying to take one side or the other. I'm just telling you how it plays out. And a perfect scenario is like, you know, I've gone through a lot of renewals. And after you've been with a client, they've been with you 2, 3, 4 years, they're gonna get calls from other agents, right? That's just happening all the time. First of all, I never discourage a client from taking a call with a competitor. Like if they're like, hey, so-and-so called me, it's like, oh, how'd it go? You know, what'd you guys talk about? You don't feel bad if you want to talk to them, man. Like you don't have to apologize to me. Like that's the kind of stuff I tell my clients, which is why I probably don't lose clients. And then I always say one thing. I say, hey, just remember, you know, what we talked about when I won your business on, you know, and I told you using one agent makes the most sense. But if they have some crazy market that I don't have, let me know. But we pretty much have all the main players that you need. But if they, you know, you're happy with our service, right? Yeah. Well, then talk with them by all means. Let them even look at my policies. Maybe they'll have some different ideas. But if they just want to market it, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense unless they have a market I don't have. And that's the whole, like, this is the whole deal. Like, you got to talk like this to clients. You don't have to, but in my opinion, this is how, if you want to gain a lot of trust and credibility with your clients, you will talk with them. And again, the reason the comment was frustrating to me was mainly because he said, he accused me of double speak, right? Like, you're all AOR and now you're saying this, like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, no, dude, that's the furthest thing from the truth. I've always been, try to remain objective, AOR agnostic. I'm just like, however you get the revenue, honestly, get the revenue now. It's like, I don't really care. And the other thing in the comment, he was saying like quoting takes no skill, blah, blah, blah. Dude, you still got to, that person's still got to build a narrative, still got to tell their, you know, and I'm not trying to defend all these other agents out here who quote and stuff, but there's still skill involved in that, right? They got to work the process, get the information, sell their underwriters. And they're not always selling less. You know, some people just quote first. Honestly, I don't know why. I disagree with this. There is some agents that just quote first, even if they think they could AOR it. They're like, no, I want to quote it. I think we're going to move it anyways. I want to just quote it. If I can get my markets, that's what I want to do. Like I know guys that do that. That's fine. If you want to do that, I don't encourage it. I don't think we encourage it at our channels. Like, hey, dude, just get the AOR and handle it. But to say that those guys don't have a skill set or they're not, you know, you have multi-million-dollar producers that operate that way. So I think that's kind of a short-sighted comment. But yeah, so I was just thinking about it over the weekend a little bit. I was like, man, this is a really important topic to talk about, the exception to the rules. So if you guys have read my book, The Business Insurance Playbook, put it up so I can get some more sales here. There it is, guys. Check it out on Amazon. Exception to the rule, literally in the beginning of the book, I have, let's see here. Know the rules. Rule number 1, an insurance carrier will work with only one agent representing a particular company on any given year. Rule 2, only quote with multiple agents when there's an agent who has access to a market that your current agent does not have access to. There you go, guys. And that was written in 2021 or something.
No, you're probably just, you're probably paying for my sins because, you know, especially when we first got the max revenue stuff, everything, you know, in order to like make waves, you got to get in there and say, you know, hyperbolic language and speak in absolutes and all that stuff because it gets in there and makes a ruckus. You've never advocated solely for an AOR. That would just be silly. So you're probably paying for, my language on that one. And then also people only get, our content people only get bits and pieces of your content through the algorithm. You know what I mean? So they probably get one where it's like BOR's, the best way to do it. And then they miss the one where it's like, hey, I just won a quoting thing because I had a market they didn't, so.
Yeah. No, I get it. I think my bigger thing is still even if you are a firm believer in AOR is the best way to do it, guys, the facts are the facts. And there is sometimes select markets, direct writers, and that makes the most, not I'm saying that makes the most sense, but it's not negative for your clients to talk with those people. And also you don't want to come across, or at least I don't, as some authoritarian figure as an agent, which I think a lot of us can get guilty, especially in the 90s, those guys who were just bullies, like, don't talk with anyone else. If you do, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Those old school brokers that get super bullyish about things. And it's like, dude, if that's the way you want to play your game, go for it. But it's like telling a client they don't know how to buy insurance is not the way to do it, guys. That's why I'm all about educating them. I'm just like, hey, this is the way to do it. You have to hire one agent, blah, blah, blah. And then guess what? Some other agent comes in with a market you have and they're 40 grand less. And now you look like a total idiot.
You look like an idiot.
And we've all seen that. So for you to deny that is just, it's the wrong approach. And you could still be a firm believer in using one agent, but you have to share the exception to the rule. And that's what I do. And that's what I do. So I do it on the front end and I do it on the renewals, which I just told you about. But on the front end, it's important too, because let's say you get into that first meeting, you don't even know who they're with, and you start having a conversation and you're all like, AOR is the only way to go. Doesn't make sense to quote. And guess what? You get the policies and you don't have access to that market. What do you just walk away? Oh, and then you go back to the client. Oh, I can't AOR this, but I need to quote it. Can I have these markets? You just told me AOR was the way to go. Now you don't, so you start to you're poking holes in your own story if you don't share the exception to the rule. And then, yeah, and again, and what I was just saying, buyers don't want to be told, they want to be shown. Like, so it's like, hey, like, you don't have to go get, the guy was, or one of the comments was like, how can buyers figure this out? I'm like, dude, just ask. This is another thing, being transparent. So it's like, as a buyer, they need to have, grow a pair and actually ask their agent if they're just curious, or just be transparent with your agent. They should be like, hey, I'm talking with another agent. Where have you guys shopped, right? And this is why sharing marketing results is so important as an agent. So your buyers aren't like left to wonder. And this is why actually reminding them every year at renewal, every year at your pre-renewal strategy meeting, hey, remember, I know you're probably getting calls from other agents. If you want to talk with anyone, go ahead. But just remember, kind of the rules of how this thing works. And I think too many of us, we sell and then we forget to have those conversations and we just assume our clients love us and they're never going to check. That's just our ego talking to us, dude. But like, business is business. And a lot of clients, they can really like you, but eventually they see that the hard market, the rates come up and they're going to get calls from other people. They're going to want to talk to people. And we preach due diligence. So in order to actually back up what you say, you have to be okay with your clients talking to other people, because that's how you got your foot in the door. So,
that's, yeah. Man,
yeah. And that's where,
nail on the head there.
That's where it just gets tough, man. I mean, and that's where, again, yeah, social media posts, if you're a producer out there and you're trying to learn and get better by just following some random posts, that's probably not the best either. Find a mentor, buy some courses from several people, find what works for you, go try it out there, and that's all you can do. But anyways, make sure that you are sharing the exception to the rule for all those reasons stated above.
No, that's a great point. I think it's I catch myself doing this. Guilty of it all the time. I wrote down two things here while you're doing it. Number one is like never speak in absolutes. If you want to do it on social media, go for it. It's a hell of a way to build a following. But when you speak in absolutes or indefinites with your clients, prospects, it always comes back to bite you in the ass. I can't tell you how many times I've said something and then it comes back and I was wrong, and then like you lose all credibility with the prospect, because if you're wrong about this, of course, how can I trust you moving forward? Mm-hmm. And then secondly is, you talked about a little bit earlier you know, kind of opening the door and giving your your client the autonomy to like talk with other people or to check your work or whatever. And we talk about this a lot, and I learned this primarily from you. Is like that, obviously an abundance mindset, but it's an abundance mindset combined with like radical transparency. And so it's like those things put together. It's easy to kind of get half pregnant with it, but not go the full way, because if I really show them everything or I really give them the full playbook, then I could lose that business. You know what I mean? So it's like opening up, like, yeah, have them, they're welcome to review my work. If you want to talk to somebody else, that's fine. Hey, here's the markets that I went to. If they have something crazy that I don't have, then by all means, I mean, I just want what's best for your business. That's tough, right? Because if you truly take that to the nth degree, you are in some way opening yourself up to lose the business. But funny enough, when I have actually done it, number one, you are just like, if you've done your work right, then you shouldn't have to worry about the other guy. But even if they do have some crazy other market, yeah, you may lose it every once in a while. But man, you have really locked in that trust that is that's just invaluable. So let's say even Federated or some crazy market did come in on a flyer and ride it for a couple of years. Who do you think they're going to go back to as soon as it gets shut down? It's like that referral that you sent to me, right, over in Louisiana. That guy wants to do business with you tomorrow. He just can't right now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so it's easy to get like 3/4 of the way into that full radical transparency, full trust, full like, hey, here's everything,
Yep.
And you're just afraid if you take that full jump, then you're going to lose the business. But I've actually found it to not be true. Sure, you will sometimes, but man, it just, talk about lock-in effect. It just locks them in.
Well, the other thing it does, and this is funny, is you think, okay, if I'm that transparent and honest, like this is kind of I think our ego talking to us again. It's like, we're just kind of your logical mind is like, well, if I'm that transparent and honest, they're just going to leave me or always be looking for other agents and talking with them. And I found that to actually have the opposite effect. When you're that transparent and honest, they honestly just stop talking with other agents because they're like, dude, you've told me how it all works. Like, yeah, I take a call every couple, 3-4 years. And then like, maybe they have one market, but then your client's like, like what, they start thinking about it. Like what's going to take to even leave anyways. And it's not worth it. I like Micah. I like the service. I like the advisement. It's just not really going to move the needle unless they can save what, 50 grand, something crazy or 30%.
Right.
So, and that is one of the reasons I like winning clients with the AOR and such a big fan of it up front, is because then they get it. And then on the back end, when you have this talk with them, they're less likely to leave you by quoting or whatever, So, so don't let that be a hindrance in being transparent, because it'll just create more stickiness.
Yeah. Well, also, I should probably tell everybody, sorry for not putting up the podcast last week. I don't know what happened. We recorded a banger of an episode, and it just didn't work. I don't know what happened. Some type of recording error. Basically, it's reporting as like I can't download the audio and upload it. So sorry about that. We did have a banger of an episode. Do you remember, I got you for like 10 more minutes. Do you want to hit any of those questions real quick before we go?
The questions from last week?
Or just anything?
Dude, you're killing me with your hair. That's your alter ego.
Yeah. It's like Chris Gaines and Garth Brooks. You remember that? You remember when he went full weirdo?
Trina Shields. Tracy Shields. That's your alter ego. I don't remember the questions, to be honest, that we answered last week. I did get, let me see here. There was a guy he bought the Producer Playbook. So I actually want to respond to him because he wanted to hop on a call, and maybe I'll still do that. I won't tell you his name on here, but He wanted to hop on a call because he bought the Producer Playbook and he was curious. Okay, here's the question. Wanted to dig into more of how you do your rate analysis and the nitty-gritty details of that process. I don't think anyone at my agency knows how to do that, nor would many underwriters I've talked to help me with an actual submission. Okay, so I do talk about a rate analysis. We all know what benchmarking is. Benchmarking, I think honestly, is overrated. I worked at the largest agency, and we'd bring in this benchmark data and show it to the client. It presents well, but at the same, or it looks fancy. But in terms of usefulness, it's so like big picture. It's not granular enough that it doesn't really matter. Like, oh, I got a manufacturer in Louisiana, and I'm comparing them to 1,000 other manufacturers. Some of them do $1 billion in sales. We got, just these huge sample pool we're comparing them to. It just doesn't. It's not. They're in different geographies. It's not really relative. So what I found works better is do your own benchmarking, and it's really impactful. If you're at an agency or even if you're a solo man, start to collect policies and rates, right, and keep them in a file. And then when let's say you get into a plumber that's in Austin, and you're like, oh, I have, our agency insures, I know 2 other plumbers, and I had a prospect I looked at. All you do is you pull up their policies and look at the rates, right? So their auto per vehicle rate, you look up their general liability rate based on their class codes. You do the work comp. You can do the rates, the schedule credit they get from underwriters or debit, property rates, inland marine and equipment rates. So, if you don't know how to figure those out, talk with someone at your agency and it's easy to figure out the rate, right? The premiums don't really do you much good, but you want to know the rate. And then all you need is a sample size of like 2 or 3 max. And then that's enough. I mean, I've had just sometimes 1, and it's like, hey, you're here. We have another client in a 50-mile radius that is here. They're like 50% less. Have you guys had a lot of losses? No. I don't know what's going on then, but these guys are here. You're doing the same exact thing from what I can tell. So that's the important thing when you're talking about rates and doing like a rate analysis or benchmark analysis and doing your own. It just opens the door to a conversation. You never make guarantees. You never say, this is where I can get you. You're just saying, hey, I have 2 other clients. I'm just showing you what they're paying for this. You're paying this on your equipment rate. You're at $1, they're at 50 cents. I don't know why that is. So it just raises questions. It raises opportunities to speak to the more in depth with your prospects. So I really this is critical. I mean, this is a huge component of the due diligence beyond just a policy review. And if the rates are fine, tell them that, right? And I never make guarantees though. It's not like, hey, if you hire me, this is where we'll get you. But I feel really confident. I think we can get close, to this based on the 2 or 3 other people that we insure. And okay, so if you don't have your own prospects, go to your agency's database or talk to another producer in your office. Like, man, I know you insure a plumber. Can you just send me their policy? So I'm just trying to do it. I won't share their information. I just need to see their rate so I can kind of do a comparison versus my current client. Simple as that.
Bingo. All right, I got one more question for you.
Okay.
Hey Trey, I was doing some cold calling today with another max revenue pirate. I realized that when I get a decision maker on the phone and ask them about due diligence, a recurring answer they give is that they already do that. I ask them about their experience with due diligence, and it generally amounts to their current agent shopping or maybe having another agent or 2 shop it. Can you or Micah, maybe on the next podcast, give some specifics for how we can differentiate with these prospects due diligence compared to shopping or coverage review? I know Micah explains the due diligence process in the Producer Playbook, and that is helpful. But if you guys could provide some quick hitters or specific talking points to get past this objection where they say we already do due diligence, I would appreciate that. Thank you guys for all you do. I thoroughly enjoy every bit of it. Whatever you're paying, Trey, double it. I added the last part.
I figured that.
All right, let's ham and eggs it a little bit. Come on, a little ham and eggs. Come on, what you got?
Oh man. So yeah, you're gonna hear this a lot. So let's just start from the beginning, okay? And then I'll probably talk all over the place. But yeah, we got an agent. They do our due diligence for us. They shop every year. They're an independent agent. They go out to the whole market. Oh, awesome. Okay, how's that worked out for you? Great. Our rates have gone down every year, or the market's really hard. But I know they go everywhere, so it doesn't really matter. Awesome. Well, hey, I'm actually not necessarily calling to quote. I think a lot of agents will call you that probably are, that's their intention. Like, hey, can I go to market? Can I shop for you? But um, I found a different approach actually works better, because at the end of the day, you have to basically believe that what your agent's telling you is accurate, right? That they're actually going to those markets, that they have the right policy in place for you, that you're paying the best rate available in the marketplace, that they're not missing any markets. So you have to kind of believe them exclusively and just hope that what they're telling you is true. I have a different approach that actually just verifies what they're telling you is accurate, or maybe opens your eyes to some different ways of doing things or some things that are being missed. So, even if your agent's going quote unquote everywhere, what if they're missing a market or two that's very hungry for your business right now? How do you know that? Or what if you have a huge exclusion on your policy that's could cost you your business, excludes the exact work you do? How do you know that? So again, I'm not telling you that your agent's doing a bad job. I'm just saying, like, how do you confirm that they're doing the best work for you? Do you guys have a process in place that, like, any external due diligence, or you just pretty much kind of have to make decisions in a vacuum? So that's kind of just some ways to talk through it. It's a tougher one to overcome because, let's face it, as an agent, if you are shopping for your client and you're very transparent with your results and you're proactive and you have good service, your clients are going to see that, and that's going to be a huge sticky factor, right? Like, okay, my agent's doing their job. So again, just kind of try to ask some questions. You don't have to push too hard. But even if they say, hey, yeah, our agent shops every single year, you can just keep it super simple. Be like, I got you. So are you basically married to your agent, or do you ever do any sort of like external due diligence just to make sure nothing's being missed or overlooked? Well, no, we trust them. They've been with us for 30 years, and they've done an excellent job. I got you. No worries. You know, I I just helped a client like last month save 60 grand after being with their agent for 20 years. Um, Mainly because we had a market that hadn't really been told a good story about the risk, and we kind of discovered that through some due diligence. So that's, you know, anyways, I'm not saying I can do that for you, but is that something you'd find valuable at all? And that's why I called you. So that's, I think, my best answer to that. I don't know if you have something you want to chime in with on that, Trey.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a great response to it other than, what you said. And I will just say this, remember, even no matter how great you are on the phone, I mean, still 1 in 7 to 1 in 11 conversations with decision makers are going to result in a meeting. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're supposed to run into a lot of no's. And I think we
Yep.
get sucked into the fact of, like, we see everybody else's scoreboard, right? Because everybody's always posting wins, and oh man, I did this, and oh, I booked that meeting, and oh, I wrote this account, this, that, and the other. And meanwhile, we're comparing that to what we're dealing with on the day to day, where we're getting no after no after no after no. And we're like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. So we have this idea that there's just, if I could, I need this one better script, or I need this one better objection handle. And the reality is, you're just supposed to get told no a lot, right? And everybody's facing it, whether you see that or not. So,
Yeah, that's a good reminder for sure. Um, we've had that happen on some other reach outs. People are like, the script's not working. It's like, I've made 100 calls, dude. You're just getting started, man. Like, make about 10,000 calls. Then let's see if it's still not working. But yeah, even a working script, maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 4. Uh,
yeah.
Maybe 1 in 4. I don't know, because we're selling insurance, so that'd be even tough. We're not selling anything new or innovative, right? That's going to get your foot in the door. Um, so this goes back, if you want to go full circle with it, if you have an exclusive carrier that you represent that's really hot in a market, why would you? This isn't. Doesn't mean you suck at selling or you're not building your career in a smart way. But why would you not take advantage of that market? Like, I got a friend who represents, I think it's a Great West in trucking. All right, very tough contract to get. They kind of, but any type of trucking risk, they're like half price if it's a good clean risk than where the market is right now, and all they do is trucking.
Not everywhere. Depends on the appetite in the market and how much they have.
But you get the point. Okay,
yeah,
but if
they want to, in the right scenario, if they want to get dirty, they're going to write it.
Correct. And so if you're an agent out there trying to get your foot in the door at a trucking company or even just a ready mix or something that they would write, why would you not tell your prospect on the phone that you have a market that no one else has or very few have, and they've been coming in about half what everyone else is coming in at with good coverage? I mean, to not say that, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't say that. Again, you're trying to open the door to the cold call. The whole part is to get the meeting, right? I mean, or have a conversation, get the conversation going. One of two. I'm more of a conversation guy, but like that should at least spark a conversation with someone.
This is really gonna probably shoot us in the foot. Hold on, let me change. Just a second. Okay, no, like that. Yeah, there we go. No, let's go this one. Yeah, there we go. This is probably gonna come back to shoot us in the foot, but honestly, you can speak in hyperbole, you can speak in absolutes, whatever, like whether it's the Producer Playbook or whatever it is, like the other gurus or these coaches or this, that, and the other in our space. But it really comes down to this individual thing. And that's why, honestly, I think probably the most valuable thing we could do if we actually had the time to do it would be one-on-one coaching, because everybody's situation is different. And so like this is a hard thing. You can't put this on a piece of paper, but it's like you just have to keep thrashing in the water until you eventually find that little bitty float or life jacket that you have available to you, considering all of the things around you, your agency, your market access, what niches you do or don't know, like relationships you have in your area. It's like I can sit here and tell you that BOR is the best thing to do. But maybe you have something that nobody else has, right? Or maybe like that. And that was the thing when I first got started that was so hard to understand, because you just don't know it until you've lost 1,000 different ways. Is like where your little slice of where your little competitive advantage is. Does that make sense? And I think everybody has one, depending on their agency and their carrier access and their sales skills and drop-ins versus cold calls and all that. But it's honestly, that's probably the most valuable thing we could do would be like a one-on-one coaching, really dig down deep into what they had available at their disposal and then help them build out basically like this is their
decision tree
individual kind of battle plan. Yeah.
It's like if this, then boom, boom, it's like, and I've kind of had to go that route on, like I said, I mean, in Houston, at least when I was over there in Texas, there wasn't a ton of standard markets right in business there. There was the handful, and I had access to all of them. Then I moved to Austin, and there was some like a couple of smaller regionals that popped up that I just didn't have. And then I start bumping into them sometimes, right? Not all the time, but just occasionally. But I know I've talked to guys like in the Midwest. There's so many insurance carriers that are right in business there. Like you can't have all the contracts. So,
right.
But again, it just comes back full circle. It's still, I'm a believer in using one agent. Talk with other agents. If they have a couple markets that I don't have, Mr. Business Owner, fine. If you want to quote, go for it. But this is just that's just the nature of the business, right? You can't control everything. Most of your clients aren't going to do that most years, right? And that's where, and this is also another good point, is when you niche, it also helps you a little bit more because you have the markets that you really need for that niche, hopefully, and you're not getting beat that way. But if you're outside your niche, like if I went and wrote a tow truck, perfect example, I got a referral from an old client that loves me, wants to work with me. I got a quote from Progressive on his tow truck program. I don't have access to this company, another company that I know Trey has access to. This is a real life scenario, guys. I called Trey because I was like, dude, I want to help my client out. This is a spinoff of an existing client, an old client. And I said, man, I got a quote from Progressive. It's here. I think you can probably beat this based on what you're telling me. And sure enough, he's probably 40% less. So it's like in that scenario, I'm going to do what's right for the client. And I told him to talk to Trey, right? And now they're happy. And they have, Trey has both Progressive and his exclusive market he has, or kind of rare market. So, there's just nuance. You can't control everything. I think all you can do is control is to be transparent, to be real with your clients. And that's all you can do.
All right, well, let's end it there. I know you got a hard stop at 10:20, so let's.
Oh, one last point. Your wife doesn't care where your commission is, how your commission is made, right? They don't care if you're AORing it or if you're quoting it. And honestly, your agency principal at the end of the day probably doesn't care either. Now, if you're quoting, you're probably sucking up more resources if you're losing a lot. But if you're winning, they don't care. Ain't nobody care.
That's
How you
right.
getting paid. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that'd be funny.
All right. Well, with that, I shot an 82, by the way. 2 drives over 340. We'll talk about it later. Your boys absolutely hit nuclear seeds.
Golf clap. Congrats, man.
And it's below sea level. So we'll talk about it later. All right. Y'all have a great week. We'll catch you next week. Sorry, no pod last week. Technical difficulties. Yeah, everything you wanted is in the show notes. See y'all later.
Peace.